Welcome to SmallTalk by Sfarim Chatter. I'm Nachi Weinstein. On this episode of SmallTalk, I'm going to be joined once again by Rabbi Simcha Hellmann, who is Reish Kail and Reish Machon of Achsanya Shel Torah, and we've had him on the past. And Machon has published some Sfarim recently, Amir LeBeis Yaakov, the Westbrook Rav, which we kind of talked about. We didn't do a specific episode on that, so maybe in the future. But now we'll be discussing on this episode Achsanya. This is a journal, fairly new. This is the third edition of the journal that just was published. There's some Pesach Torah and other things in there. And this journal is focused on the Torah of the Rabbanei Ashkenaz, the German Gedolim. So thank you, Rabbi Simcha, for joining me once again.
Okay, thank you, Nachi, for having me on again.
So what can you tell the listeners about Achsanya Journal?
So I guess a little bit of background is really what's necessary, which is that the Achsanya Journal, or Kovetz Achsanya, is really the invention and creation based on the fact that we are in the Machon and in the Kola. What we're doing is we've identified over the past many years that we've been working on this already. We've identified well over 700 Sfarim, real Geshmaka Sfarim, that are not around, not in print, that we are working on slowly to reprint. Some of them we've done, some of them are in the process, some of them are not even on the Shulchan Aricha yet. And then, so those are Sfarim. Then in Kisvei Yad, I don't even have a number, but there are many, many Kisvei Yad that are full Chiburim that just, for whatever reason, their mazel wasn't to end up being printed. But amongst all of that searching and finding all of these things, there are lots of pieces, whether it be from Sfarim or whether it be from manuscripts, that are Geshmaka pieces that are very nice and exciting and useful, that don't really fit anywhere. They're not a full chibur within and of itself, and sometimes they're on random topics or they're on a Yom Tif, and so it's very hard to create a sefer out of that. So that's how we came up with the idea to publish a kovetz, where we put in these types of pieces. So the first one was very small. It was a trial run to see if people would like it. People loved it. So then we did a second one, which was on, the first one was on Shavuos, the second one was on Sukkot, and now we did the third one on Pesach. So obviously there's a lot more material on each one of those Yom Tovim, but in the meantime, that's what we put out. There's a limit to how much you can put out. We have plans to put out one for Purim and for Hanukkah, and then we'll see where we go from there.
And this one is about 150 pages, so there's a lot of material. So what can you tell specifically about this volume 3?
So in volume 3, we have an array of different items. Some are manuscripts, some are not. The basis, the major part of the journal is a fascinating discussion between the Gedolei Yisrael in the 1700s, which this is the Geshmaka part of the whole COVID. So let's talk about it, which is that basically what I came across in the previous two kovetzim we put out from Rav Gavriel Adler, who's the brother of Rav Ber Adler and Rav Nosson Adler Hasheni, the Rabbi Nathan Adler, the chief rabbi of England. Rav Ber Adler was, of course, a dayan in Frankfurt who took over and basically led the Kehila until 1840s when he was Nifter, and Rav Hirsch came after that point. So he was one of the old timers that was still keeping Frankfurt safe. That was the other two brothers. Now, Gavriel is the least known of the brothers, but for whatever reason, I have a certain connection with his Torah. I don't know why. And he never wrote any Sfarim. The sefer that he did publish was Loshin Zav, Rav David Tevli Schiff, who was also officially, he wasn't the chief rabbi of England, but he was the predecessor to that position. He was the chief rabbi of London, whatever you would call it. So he's the one who actually published that from the Ksavim of his, his great uncle or whatever it is. So but he himself wrote a lot in the Shem Etzion Anemon, which I think we did discuss in the past, which was the Aruch LaNer's, bi-monthly, whatever you want to call it, Gillion that he would put out in all the shuls, and this idea of putting out a Gillion in shuls is not something new. It's been around already for 150 years. Shem Etzion Anemon. So Gavriel Adler wrote a lot in there. And so we've been being malakit from his Torah from there, as well as he has a few different chiburim, notebooks in manuscript. So I came across, when I was looking for more Torah for this one, I came across a shtickle on Pesach that had to do with the sugya of giving chametz to a kelev shel hefker, or a behema shel hefker, whether or not that's considered hana. And he brings there a shaila from Reb Tevli Sheir. Reb Tevli Sheir David Tevli Sher, who's same David Tevli. That's why it's confusing. I saw people who are writing biographies messed up the biographies because Reb David Tevli Schiff is the Rebbe of Reb Nosson Adler Harishan, the Rebbe of the Chassam Sofer, while Reb David Tevli Sher was had what to do with the Chassam Sofer, but he certainly wasn't his Rebbe. Anyway, so I saw this, that he brings a kasha from David Tevli Sher, which is very fascinating. And I figured, let me go and look around a little bit about this. And basically, I found that it's also brought in the Sefer Ber Yaakov from Rabbi Yaakov Berlin, who was learned with Rabbi David Tevli Sher by the Shev Yaakov, the Rabbi Yaakov Poppers in Frankfurt, who had the largest yeshiva, the famous yeshiva in Frankfurt. And they learned together there. And the Ber Yaakov brings it from his good friend, Shamati Kushya me David Tevli Sher. Okay. So that's interesting. So now I have two people who are quoting this famous kasha on the sugya in Pesachim Chaf Aleph through Chaf Hey from Reb David Tevli. And then I kept looking a little more, and I found in the Pardes David, which is Reb David Disbeck, who was Dayan in Fjorda, and then he eventually became he was the Rosh Yeshiva or Ab Bezdin of Metz at the same time as the Shagas Aryeh, and then he moved to Bayersdorf, and he became the Ab Bezdin there, and he wrote fantastic Sfarim, 6 volumes, Pardes David, which are not around. They're tiny little prints, 6 thick volumes. No one has them. Either way, he also brings this kasha from Reb David Tevli Sher. So now it already became a whole, it snowballed into a whole situation. So I figured there's two options here. Either this is really a kasha that the Shev Yaakovs had, because they all learned together by the Shev Yaakov. Reb David Tevli, Reb David Disbeck, and Rabbi Yaakov Berlin. They all learned by the Shev Yaakov together at the same time. So either it's from him, or it's Reb David Tevli himself. So I went searching all the Kisvei Yad of the Shev Yaakov, and there is nothing on the sugya. He doesn't have any shurim on the sugya, nothing to talk about. So it must be Reb David Tevli. So I started looking through his Kisvei Yad, and all of a sudden I came across in the Ksav Yad of his son, Reb Michal Sher, who took over the yeshiva in Mainz and set over a lot of Torah from his father, that he brings a long shir. It's about 10 pages or 11 pages in a Ksav Yad. He brings a whole shtickle Torah about this. Lumdis, Tif, Mamish, Tif, with Pilpul, the whole thing. Long shir. And at the end, he quotes 2 kashas from his father on this, and I thought right away that must be the 2 kashas. It's in Ksav Yad, so obviously you're not sitting there reading exactly what the kasha is, but you can see that he's quoting something from his father. So I said, this is great. We have here a whole situation going on. In the end, it's something interesting as a sidebar. It's not the kasha from his father. It's not the kasha that everyone else is quoting from his father. It's 2 different kashas from his father. Nothing to do, which is interesting that he's not quoting the famous kasha from his father in his shir on this. But what is interesting is that it happens to be that this shir that Reb Michal Sher said, and in that I found in the Ksav Yad, was actually said in the year 1776 or 1777. How do we know that? Because the Chassam Sofer learned in Mainz under Reb Michal Sher and Reb Tevli Sher in those years, 1776 and 1777, and the Chassam Sofer quotes them both as his Rabbeim, but every time he quotes them as the Rabbeim, he quotes them 5-6 times. He always quotes it, Shemati Kushya B'Shem. I heard a question in the name of my Rebbe, or Shemati Kushya Mibocher Echad B'Shem Reb David Tevli. Only one time does he actually say Shemati Kushya. He doesn't say mipi, but some type of lashon that he says Shemati Kushya mi Reb David Tevli, that it actually sounds like he heard it, and that's this kasha. And the Chassam Sofer quotes it, and he gives his own teretz to it. Either way, that's where this whole that's the main part of the Achsanya Volume 3. Then we also throw in there some of the svarim that we're working on, like the Sefer Bein Peres Yosef, which we featured in the past, which is on Haftarahs, and the Chok Yosef on Hilchos Pesach, which we're working on, which is also a fascinating discussion to have. But that was the major part of this volume.
So that major part, as you said, another thing that you do in the journal, besides for quoting the Torah, and you get stuff from manuscript, and some of this is from older farm that are reprinted, as you mentioned, but either way, when you quote these Gedalim, you mention their names, it says it in the beginning on the Teichen, and then you give a kind of a biographical sketch of them, if you will, that readers not necessarily familiar with these Gedalim can find out who they are. Also, you mentioned Michal Sher. You have a separate piece from him, right? Chedushim HaMasechta Pesachim. That's besides for this, where you're quoting his father, and Rabbi Yaakov Lim, David Disbeck, Rabbi Gabriel Adler, and that whole as you call it, Shar Melchamta Shel Torah. This fight that they had. Then there's the Haftarah, as you mentioned, Yosef has Ben Peres Yosef on Haftarahs. You have some of the Chak Yosef, and you have a Shabbos Hagadol drasha of the Hafla Sun as well. So there's really a lot of different material in here. So how do you go about selecting some of this material? And you can give some more examples if you want from some of the material, but how do you go selecting about some of this material for the journal? Is it you said you just came across it, it's Pesach related? What's the process like?
Okay, so as I'm going through the different stuff, primarily for the Kailo and for the Machon, for the Son that we're working on, I keep files of all the different things that we come across that are interesting. All the time I'm show my shutter from Bamberger. I say, hey, look what I just found. You won't believe it. This kind of thing. There's lots of fascinating stuff really on sugyas that would be really fascinating Kovitzim to put out. Just give you an example. There's in Hilchas Nida, there's a big machlokes about waiting 40 days or 80 days after Yeledes. And famously, the Gedolim in the 1700s basically put that minig out of circulation. The one place that actually kept that minig going strong is Frankfurt, which is, there's a whole sugi. You can look in the Noisei Kelim on Shulchan Aruch over there. It's mentioned, Pesach Tshuva. Okay. Now, what's interesting is how strong were they in Frankfurt? I actually found in a Ksav Yad that announcement from the Bezdin putting a cherem on anyone who doesn't keep the old minig of 40 and 80 days. Like these kinds of things you come across, you file them away. So that's where most of the material comes from. Basically, it's being filed away as we find it. And then it's Hashem, as things come about, That's how we select. And we're selecting things that are going to be the most gishmak and enticing for people to look at it. Another example, like just the Chok Yosef, it's very, besides the Sefer Chok Yosef, which is a great Sefer in Hilchos Pesach, and of course, I don't think we said it, but the Chok Yosef is a hasaga on the Chok Yaakov. The Chok Yaakov, Yaakov Reicher, who was the Av Bezin of Prague, he wrote the Shvus Yaakov famously, Baal Shaus Shvus Yaakov, 3 volumes. He wrote a Sefer, and he was the Gadol Hador, Zokin Hador. And then this little 20-year-old Rav, who was a Rav no one ever heard of, he happens to be the son-in-law of Rabbi Avram Breida. So everyone knew of Rabbi Avram Breida, but besides that, no one heard of Rabbi Yosef Breslau. He puts out a Sefer where he's just arguing on Kemat every sif in Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Pesach, he's arguing with the Zokin Hador. And obviously, you can read in the Kovitz about how Yaakov Reicher wasn't exactly very happy about it. He wrote back that he doesn't even want to answer him because it's such a chutzpah that he wrote such things. Okay, fine. It's a whole back and forth. But what's interesting is that in all the new Maduras of Mishnah Brura, so whether it be in Mishnah Brura, whether it be in the Be'er Heitev, or any of the other Noisei Kelim, Shari Tshuva, so when they all will abbreviated Ches Yud. So it's really funny to watch. I'm not going to mention any specific mechaim that made a Mishnah Brura, but I'll go fun him. A lot of them, it's really funny to see that they just opened up all of them as Chok Yaakov or sporadically sprinkled Chok Yosefs inside. I don't know exactly what their rhyme or reason was, but a lot of them are very, very off on which ones they're quoting. And now that we're learning through the Sefer, we see he was clearly not quoting the Chok Yaakov. He was trying to tell you that the Chok Yosef is right. It's just interesting.
And that's a sefer that the Machon is working on redoing.
Correct. And Mitzvah Shem by next Pesach, it's going to be out. The Mitzvah Shem, Bezos Hashem.
And also, this Kovitz is like the rest of the work that the Machon does. It's to perpetuate the Torah of the Rabbani Ashkenaz, of the German Gedolim, and many of whom, those that know, I guess, but many people today, listeners, I venture to say, even Yekis, don't necessarily know about and aren't familiar with the Torah. As far as aren't in print or the manuscripts haven't been published or things like that, and you're trying to publicize and kind of perpetuate their Torah.
100%. It's important for everyone to realize that in every part of Klal Yisrael, whether it be Litvish, whether it be Polish, whether it be Hungarian, whether it be Hasidim in general, or whether it be Russian, whether it be Sephardim, whether it be, you name it, Italian, everyone has vast amounts of Svarim that have been lost, whether they were printed Svarim, whether they be manuscripts. They're lost, meaning that they're really lost and they're gone forever, or they're just sitting in libraries or private collections, gone, and haven't seen the light of day for hundreds of years. So so I happen to be from Yotzei Ashkenaz. I'm someone who speaks to me. But Avad, that we bring in the last case, we brought in a whole pilpul between the Gedolim and Lita that we're discussing, having Shas Uchuvas back and forth with the Gedolim and Ashkenaz about a different sugya. But it's a tremendous amount, and it's a big zechus to be zeichet to bring out someone's divrei Torah who wrote these things. One of the Gedolei Yisrael wrote something and put it away, hoping someone would print it. and it was gone. Whatever it was, these gedolim. You have to remember, these gedolim were living in times where Napoleon was turning over Europe, and in these tekufas, and wars, and cities were being burnt down, and people were running all over. It was a wild time. So yeah, it's a big zechus.
Now the journal, I think, as mentioned, it's really a journal of Torah. So of course, before each one, like we mentioned before, the Gedolim, you do mention their biography. You do have some background information about that particular controversy. There are many facsimiles of the Svarim, Peshar Blad of the Sefer. You have a picture of the Ksaviyat. You'll have a lot of pictures. Be able to get a real feel for what's going on historically, and so there is history in here. But at the end of the day, many journals that we see today have articles, quasi-academic articles or serious historical articles. This, at the end of the day, the journal here is a Torah journal of the Torah of Rabbani Ashkenaz with, of course, history and background and context. Is that an accurate description of the journal?
Most definitely. It is. We're simply publishing Torah. That's what we're looking to do. We put notes on the bottom, obviously. That's how Sfarim are published today. You want someone who's going to spoon feed you exactly what the dikduk is that you're supposed to be noticing in each sentence, which is great, and bring you other Mar Mekaimas. So that's the way Sfarim are. And we give the historical background because, again, as you said before, a lot of people don't necessarily know these Gedolei Yisrael, who were very well known in their times, as you can see from the information that we're bringing. There's no articles in there that are actually personally written. Obviously, there's a little bit of a hakdama, and then there's the Toldos that is written by us, and then there's in this volume there's an introduction to this whole Polmus Melchamte Shel Torah that there's an introduction to, and also to the Sefer Chok Yosef. There's a little introduction just to give you background and understanding. But besides for that, there's not really much of an article or an academic perspective. One of the things I was thinking of writing, but I ended up pulling it out, which is that the Sefer Lachmei Toida, beside the Haflah's son, Reb Tzvi Hirsch Horowitz, who was the one who took him over as the Av Bezin of Frankfurt, and was really the last of the old timers, and that's when Frankfurt basically fell to the reform as soon as he was nifter. Fell to the reform, meaning that the reform took a stronger stance, and basically it was a stalemate, and they couldn't elect a Rav for the next 70 years almost. There was no real Rav elected until the Mata Levi, Mordechai Horowitz was elected as the Rav. Right until then, so from Reb Tzvi Horowitz until the Mata Levi, there's really no official Rav. It was Av Bezdin, and then okay, fine. What's interesting about his sefer, so his Machne Levi is Sugyas, is Lamdas. The Lachmei Toida is primarily his drushes for Shabbos HaGadol and Hespedim, which are fascinating because you can see as the years go on what nekudas he's giving Musar about, and you feel you get dropped into Frankfurt in the year 1812. You're there. You feel him speaking to you and telling you, Rabbi say you should be more zori with this, you should be more zori with that. So I wrote an article about the of all the different things that he speaks and as he goes along, but I left it out for now. I left it out of this volume because it wasn't appropriate for this kind of a journal.
So the plan is for future volumes to do it like you're doing tonight. Like you said, one volume was on Shavuos, one on Sukkot, now one on Pesach. You're going to do them for Chanukah, Purim. Is that the plan? Such a thing like that, to try to do it for a different Yom Tov?
So yes, we certainly want to do on Chanukah and on Purim, like I mentioned. But after that, I would love to do on Mesechtes or different mikzois and halachos, such as Nida and Shabbos and things like that, and then all different mikzois and halacha. There's just so much material, and even on the ones that we did on Shavuos and Sukkot and Pesach, we could put out 5 volumes on each one of them of the amount of material. These are literally cherry picked pieces that are selected just because this is what we're dealing with. That's what ended up being selected. But there's so much material. It's incredible. It's incredible to fathom how much there is.
Okay, so I'll link to it in the show's notes, and I believe it's $10 plus shipping. It's in farm stores. Where can anyone interested in purchasing it buy it? And if you want to tell them about the website where they can get a hold of a copy.
Yeah, so the easiest is obviously to order on the website, because then you know that you'll get it. You don't have to run around to the farm stores. The website is kolashkenaz.org. I guess use the link to figure out how to spell it, but it is in farm stores. Beagle Eisen just got in Lakewood. It's going to be in the stores. Judaica Plaza, Mitzvah Shem, and it's around. It's around the different stores. The hafatza is always difficult with the Svarim. The distribution with Svarim are always difficult. Stores don't necessarily want to stock seasonal items and things like that. But okay, this is the way it is. People who want it know where to find it.
Right, so it'll be available, like you said, in Judaica Plaza. Again, I'll call Ashkenaz. I'll put that in the show's notes, but just to for listeners, it's KOLLELASHKENAS. Z. So Ashkenaz.org. Now, how can in Muncie? You're in Muncie. If anyone's interested, can they get in contact? Can they email? Is there an email for the Machon? They could just email. Is it available there? And like I said, it'll be in the stores, or Beagle Eisen has it. They can go there. Or again, you can order from the website. But if someone just wants to get it in time for Yom Tov, how can they reach out to ask where they're located if it's available? Is there an email? Machon has an email.
They can send me an email. RabbiHellman at kolashkenaz.org. Yeah, you can send an email or my phone number 845-304-3744. Call, text, whatever it is. And it's very close to Yom Tov, so that's the way it is. But okay, we shipped out dozens of them today. So
right. And listen, it's 150 pages, a lot of material, a lot of Torah, $10. So for those interested, can get a hold of a copy, and I'll link to in the show's notes. And Be'ez Hashem will do more podcasts as more Sfarim come out. And like I mentioned at the beginning, the Meal Beis Yaakov we still didn't get to. Did a very nice job on that, but Rabbi Hashem will get to that. So thank you, Rabbi Simcha, for joining me, and wishing everyone Chag Kosher v'Sameach.
Okay, everyone, Chag Kosher v'Sameach. Thank you, Nachi.